I do want to move on though. Let's talk about as much as I love talking Texas A&M. Let's talk about Gatlin Bair. 4-star, 5-star. I mean, it's different wherever you look, right? He committed to Oregon. He's not signed yet, but he's committed to Oregon, right? I mean, he was originally committed to Boise State, which is a big deal for the Broncos over there. Big loss of the commitment once they fired gosh, forget his name. Now Spencer Danielson's there.
Andy Alvos.
Andy Alves. Beautiful. Thank you, Jason, for the save there. Jason, I know I think you're excited about Gatlin Bair, and I think you're excited about Oregon's weapons. Can you explain to me what Gatlin Bair does for this Oregon Ducks team?
Yeah, speed is this is a guy that Olympic level track times. We talked about Terry Bussey being one of the fastest players in the class, running a 10.66. Gatlin Bair 10.15. And this is a guy that could be going to the Olympics had he wanted to train on the track and field. Game breaking speed, and you turn on the film, you certainly see it. And I think the thing that steps out or kind of stands out for me with Gatlin Bears, it's not just that vertical speed. And this is something kind of we talk about a lot is I think it's easy to get wrapped up in track times. I've already given you guys 2 track times. Yes, being vertically fast in a straight line is massive, but can you get in and out of your breaks? Can you create separation? I think Gatlin Bair can do all of that as well. So you're getting a guy who is the fastest player on the football field the minute he steps on, but a guy that after the catch, making people miss, creating separation. I mean, certainly massive for the Ducks here. And as a Michigan fan, it was kind of coming down to Oregon and Michigan. He goes to Oregon, and you can't really blame him after seeing what Bo Nix just did in 2023 with guys like Tez Johnson and Troy Franklin. I mean, Gatlin Bair, difference maker the minute he steps on campus. Now, I think the caveat is 2-year mission trip after high school, so he's not going to be on campus for the Oregon Ducks until 2026. Yeah, whenever he gets on campus for the Oregon Ducks, you are getting a kind of different dude in terms of the speed department.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
for
like let me ask you, does the mission trip like turn off folks in the recruiting
Yes, it
department?
did.
Like,
I was surprised. So we hopped on and covered it right when it happened. I kind of dropped what I was doing. This one was a big one. And there were some fans that weren't happy about it. The way I look at it is you look at Oregon's wide receiver room for the next 2 years, like Gatlin Bair, as special as he is. I mean, I'm not sure how much he's playing year one, right? Evan Stewart, Tez Johnson, Trayshawn Holden. They have a very loaded veteran wide receiver room in 2024. So I don't know if he'd be playing that much then. I mean, 2025, you'd love to have him, but when you get him in 2026, you're going to have guys like Ryan Pelham and Jeremiah McClellan, also 2 wide receivers that they signed in 2024. I think it's not necessarily a blessing in disguise, but you're going to get Gatlin Bair in 2026 when he probably has a little bit more of an opportunity to step in day one and kind of make an impact for Oregon, where if you were to be on this Oregon roster in 2024, I mean, how much is he going to play over guys like Evan Stewart and guys like Tez Johnson and Trayshawn Holden during that 2024 year?
yeah, not only that, you also have to factor in the adjustment to competitive play, right? He came from
Agreed.
a school in Idaho.
Yep.
Obviously, the football there is not as elite as it is in some parts of the country for sure. And you saw that a little bit at the All-American Bowl, which he ended up actually thriving and playing really well. And obviously got a bump from 24/7 because of, you saw not only the speed, but also, like you mentioned, getting in out of cuts, creating separation, and not just being a track player, but also a football player with track speed. Yeah, I think that it would be nice for him to get on campus, but like you said, they got guys there, veterans in that room, that are already ready to play right now. And yeah, I don't think it hurts them too much to not get him for the first couple years. And you also get him, like he'll still have all 4 years of eligibility.
Yeah.
It's not like he'll lose them. And so he'll just be a 20-year-old freshman, right? You think back to Calvin Ridley, not necessarily the same situation, but an older freshman, you can come in and you're more physically ready to play at the next level.
Agreed.
so why do you think he went to Oregon over Michigan? Was the final 2, Jason? And you're a
Yeah.
Michigan fan, so I want to hear this.
I mean, as a Michigan fan, it's if you're a 5-star wide receiver and you're trying to figure out where you want to go play your football. I mean, there's a reason why Ohio State, the Oregon Ducks, they're attracting the 5-star talent. You look at the offense and how the offense is run; it's run through the passing attack. And for Michigan, make no mistake about it, like we push the ball down the field, but I mean, it's much more of a run heavy system where you're kind of playing 12 personnel, not a ton of playing time and opportunities for wide receivers. And we kind of say it with this Oregon team. Why did Evan Stewart go to Oregon out of the transfer portal? Why did Gatlin Bair decide to go to Oregon out of the high school trail? this is an offense that you want to go play for if you're a playmaking wide receiver. And I think that's kind of one of the things I'm a little bit more critical as a Michigan fan. And we don't have that explosive offense. And so it gets really hard to sell these 5-star wide receivers to come up to Ann Arbor when we're not really kind of pushing the ball down the field as much as programs like the Oregon Ducks are.
Yeah, I also want to mention, and I agree with that 1,000%. But I do think, not to go back to the mission trip, but I think that does play a little bit of a role into it in terms of program stability. 2 to 3 years down the line.
Yep.
I love the Strong Moore hire. I do really like it. I think Michigan is obviously very well suited culturally and everything else in the new era of college football to succeed in it. But I do think you look at what Oregon and Dan Lanning has right now, and I think it's a lot more known than unknown versus Michigan, where you could come back from mission trip and it's like, what the hell happened, at Michigan. And obviously we hope that doesn't happen for our buddy Jason here. But yeah, I think that's part of it,
100% agree. I think Dan Lanning pretty much saying, I'm staying in Eugene, not going to Alabama, didn't even give it a look. I think if you're Gatlin Bair saying, yeah, I'm not enrolling until 2026, yeah, Oregon's pretty steady ship. I think what this program is going to look like in 2026 for Gatlin Bair. And I think that played a heavy role as well. I think that's a good point.
I do want to talk about real quick in terms of like class fit and how this looks for Oregon for both of you guys here. We kind of saw them put an emphasis on the wide receiver position in December and January with, the Evan Stewart in the portal. They flipped Jeremiah McClellan, like you mentioned, from Ohio State, and obviously closing with Gatlin Bair here. Do you think that's part of what they're doing with moving to the Big Ten, or in terms of like seeing Washington just beat them twice at with these elite wide receivers, and that makes a difference here? Or is this just like, oh, Dan Lanning's just stockpiling talent,
Me personally, I think there's probably an argument of both. I think we talked about this a lot with Oregon. Like, I think Dan Lanning comes from that Kirby Smart mantra of like, enough's never enough. Like, you want as much competition and depth in these position groups as you can. And so we're going to go get Evan Stewart if we can get Evan Stewart. We're going to get Gatlin Bair if we can get Gatlin Bair. And I think that you talk about them turning the heat up for these wide receivers. They also flipped Ryan Pellin from USC on signing day in December. So it's I wonder if it did play a role where you just see the Washington Huskies trot out 3 NFL wide receivers with an NFL quarterback and go to work, get to the national championship game and say Dan Lanning thinks we got to kind of emulate that kind of structure. I wouldn't be surprised if that was in the back of his head as well.